Are you frustrated with online dating? Confused by all the new apps and fancy dating sites? Do you find yourself choosing the wrong person again and again? Well, studies show that hiring a dating coach can maximize your online dating experience. So no worries, I've got you. And I've created a virtual course called Doing Dating Right. It's a 5-video series that you can complete at your own pace in your own space, right at home. How to write your online dating bio, pick that perfect picture, and so much more. Want more info? Go to my website at jenniferhurwitz.com. Again, it's jenniferhurwitz.com. Good morning. Good morning. This is Doing Relationships Right. I'm Jennifer Hurwitz, and I'm your host every Tuesday and every other Friday. You know that. And if you're watching right now, then you will see that I have Krista St-Germain in the house with me today. And if you're listening, I still have Krista St-Germain. I'm excited about this. I really am. I've got to slow down a bit because this topic, I'm going to get through it. I promise. I'm not going to cry, Krista, although you said it's okay if I do.
Totally fine if you cry.
It's okay if I cry. Okay. So I'm already getting, I've never had anything like this on my podcast. I've never had any topic. Well, that's not true. I've had some grief related topics, but nothing. Let's just get right into it. You are coaching with Krista, Krista St-Germain, Widowed Mom Podcast, the Widowed Mom Podcast. And I've stalked you a little bit, and I've read everything. I really have stalked you a lot. I've read your beautiful website, and I've looked into your stuff, and I've post-traumatic growth, everything. Tell us your story. Do you mind telling us how you started, where this all came about? Obviously, you lost your husband.
Yeah.
That's how this started.
I don't mind at all.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, I was on my second marriage.
Okay.
First marriage did not end well. Second marriage to Hugo was like the proof that good relationships are possible. And I was just kind of at a very high point in life.
Okay.
And we were coming back from a trip, which we had both driven separately to. And I had a flat tire. And so we pulled over on the side of the highway. And the true stubborn, independent man that he was did not want to wait on AAA to come and change the tire. He was just like, let me just change the tire. It'll be faster. I just want to get home. So I'm standing on the side of the road, texting my then 12-year-old daughter to tell her that we'll be late because she was on the bus with the kids coming back from the trip. And he's trying to get the spare tire out from my trunk, standing in between his car and mine. No warning, no brakes, no nothing. It's daylight. We have our hazard lights on. And a driver who did not see us, who we later found out had both meth and alcohol in his system, crashed into the back of Hugo's car and trapped him in between his car and my car. So it went from life is amazing and wonderful and the future is bright to complete like shattering of everything, right? Okay. And so, within less than a day, just my whole life got completely flipped upside down. So I didn't really ever anticipate that grief work was work that I wanted to do. It's just where I found myself. And so I was 40, ended up very quickly back in my therapist's office, who was wonderful, right? Told my story enough that I could get it to feel real, right? Because in acute grief, sometimes things you intellectually know that you've had a loss and you believe that it's happened, but it doesn't really quite feel real. Your brain can't quite comprehend it.
Right.
And so that was really helpful for me in the beginning. But then I got to this place, which I now call a grief plateau, where, everybody's saying, oh, you're so strong. You're doing so great. And from the outside, you look like you're doing great.
Right.
Right. But you don't
what else can you do, right? I mean, you're walking through, I'm assuming you have to go on for your children, right? So what?
Well,
not really.
I do think that we don't give I think we miss an opportunity to give ourselves credit when we say that we have no choice but to go on, because we do have a choice. We don't have to go on.
This is true.
And some people don't go on.
They don't, right.
But nonetheless, most of us do.
Okay.
But then still, that doesn't mean that just because you look like you're okay on the outside, that you feel like you're okay on the inside.
Of course not.
And I really kind of didn't want to believe it, but I really did believe it, that my best days were probably behind me. Like that was probably as good as life was going to get, that he got me in a way and accepted me in a way that nobody else probably ever would. Like he knew all the shadows, and so I really did kind of believe that I should probably just like count my blessings and get used to this kind of new normal, and that I would be okay. but that I wouldn't ever be genuinely, truly happy again. But then there was this other part of me that absolutely did not want to believe that. Right.
Okay.
And so that's where I found myself. And it just kind of happened that this woman who I had been following for a while and listening to her podcast launched a coaching program. It was not grief specific, but I wanted tools and strategies. I didn't want to be told, you're doing great. That's what my therapist
I
was telling me.
agree.
You're doing great.
Yeah, I like
You
that
should
too.
become a therapist.
Right. I want to know what I can do.
Right.
I
Like,
like
give
that
me
too.
tools. What
Actionable,
do I
valuable
do?
tools.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
And so I ended up enrolling in this coaching program. Interestingly enough, simultaneously pursuing a therapy program. Like my therapist and I were like, no, I'm going to become a therapist. She's like, you're going to come work for me. I had enrolled in a marriage and family therapy program. And while I was waiting for it to start, I also enrolled in this coaching program. And the coaching program, like, it kind of started blowing my mind. And so, about 6 months into it, I decided, I don't want to do the job I've been doing forever. There's more to life than this. These tools are powerful. I want to lean into this.
Wow.
And so at that point, I still wasn't even planning on doing grief work because I still just had too much of my own work to do. But fast forward, right? And I applied the tools on myself enough that I got to a place where I genuinely did love my life again. And I really saw grief so differently and loss so differently. And I saw the possibility of post-traumatic growth and how we can create that for ourselves, that I just decided, okay, this is the work that I have to do. And so then I quit my job, and that was, 2018. So here we are.
Wow. How many years has it been since
So
you lost your husband?
it'll be 6 years since he died. So he died in August 1st of 2016. So we're coming up on the 6-year anniversary. And then, I quit my job in early 2018 and started coaching and never looked back.
Wow. I just think this is remarkable because I don't think there's any, I mean, I can't even talk. I'm so like, but it's like, I don't think there's anything out there like what you do.
Yeah.
I've never heard of what you do. I mean, this is like amazing. I feel like people are so stuck in this. I have a really good friend who I'm going to actually send to you, who lost her husband recently, who is just, she needs you. Like, I feel like everyone needs you,
Well, and that's why I do it, because my Google searches came up with nothing.
Right.
Like I couldn't find it. And that was so frustrating for me to be able to not find what I wanted. So, yeah.
And so you said that you talk about myths, that there's lots of myths about grief. And I don't know. I've never had to go through this, knock on wood, but I'm sympathizing. I can't empathize because I don't know how you're feeling. I don't know, but I would love to understand the myths that if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, totally. That was one of the things that I so quickly realized, is that all the things I thought I knew about grief weren't actually very accurate or very useful.
Wow.
And since then, of course, I just see it everywhere, that we live in a culture that doesn't really like to talk about grief. And so, of course, we don't really know much about it.
Yeah.
So I think what most of us hear, or what I was familiar with, was the idea that there were 5 stages to grief.
That's what I was going to say, but that's
Yeah.
not okay. Yeah.
Well, it's just like with anything, right? There's a whole lot of theories about how to eat healthy,
Sure.
right? There's
But
also a lot of theories about grief. So
interesting.
but that one just seems to have taken hold, right? That's
Agree.
the one that shows up in all of our pop
That's
culture.
when I learned.
Yeah.
That's when I learned it. Yeah.
Which can be kind of frustrating. I think it's important to know that, the Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler, who created that, their original work was based on hospice patients, right? It was based on people who were coming to terms with their own death, not people who were trying to adjust to the death of someone that they care about. And so people tend to want to put themselves in this kind of linear path where they try to force themselves through these stages and expect that should be their grief experience. But for most of us, grief is not like that at all, right? All of the emotions are part of grief. It's not just you have to be angry and then bargain and then, be in denial,
Right.
whatever. There are as many different grief experiences as there are humans and kinds of loss, right? We also use a lot of language in our culture about grief as a journey, which kind of then gives people the impression that it ends. And so
it never ends.
It totally never ends.
Right,
It never ends, right? And so because we come into it not understanding the goal, then how do we support ourselves when we think the point is to get over something or through something that doesn't actually end, when really the idea is, no, how do I take this life experience and integrate it? How do I, bring it into the fabric of my life, and then decide what I want to do, who I want to be,
Interesting.
having had this experience. So there's all kinds of things that I think we set ourselves up for. Also, we just are kind of taught that feelings are problems too,
Agree.
right? So we most of us are sold this bill of goods that we're supposed to be happy all the time.
I hate that.
I know,
I just did it. I just did a podcast on toxic positivity where I'm so sick of everyone saying, you should be no,
Yeah.
you're allowed to be unhappy.
Yeah.
I
But
feel
like
like
it took me a
it's our
long time to
right.
figure that out.
Yeah, me too.
Right? Like I literally remember in my 30s, before even having met Hugo, like going, "Oh, aren't I supposed to be happier than
Oh
this?
my
Like I
God,
have
me
the
too.
job, I have the kids, I have the house, I have the retirement fund, like I have all the things. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to be happier than this."
I was feeling guilty for not being
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How dare I complain about not
How
being
dare I
happy when
complain
I'm
about not being happy?
totally,
Right.
totally relate to that.
So frustrating.
Yeah. And so then when you get to grief, right, and you think that
I can't imagine.
happiness is the point
Oh
of
my
life, right? Then you think that all of your emotional experiences are problems. And this is why I think we're so weird around people who have lost someone,
We are so
because
weird because
we
I'm
are
so weird right
so
now.
weird.
We're so weird. Like we don't know what to say. We don't know how to
Right.
handle it. We don't know
Yeah.
how to
Right.
show up for people.
Yeah.
What do we do? I would love to.
Yeah.
This is the most amazing thing to me because I would love someone to sit me down and say, "Look it, this is what you do." I mean, I
Yeah.
have had so many people close to me lose people that are close to them,
Yeah.
and I think I'm doing it right. I think I'm being there for them. I think I'm showing up, but it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's about them.
Yeah.
What do I?
Yeah, I
You know?
recorded a podcast episode called "For Those Who Love Us," which
Oh,
might
I gotta listen.
help people. Yeah, it might
Yes,
help you
yes.
because I go into a little bit of that. I think we need to give ourselves some grace. I mean, we're never going to
Agreed.
get it right because not everybody needs the same type of support and grief. But
Right.
if we could get the idea that feelings aren't problems, right? Like, why do we say
Yes.
all those weird, creepy things that,
Why
right?
do we say all those words?
Like they're in a better. This is what I heard.
Oh,
He's in a better
no.
place,
No.
right?
That's the most toxic part. That is the
At least he's
worst.
not suffering. You're young. You'll find there are other fish in the sea. You're so young. At least, at least you're young, right? Um,
What did you say when people said, do you mind me asking? Like, how did you, I don't know what I would have done if
I think I knew in my heart
that
that
is
they
coming from
meant well.
yeah.
And so I didn't push back on
Because
it.
you couldn't, right. I mean,
Right. Because I also had a great deal of compassion for myself of having said some of those very same things.
okay.
And I think I got it in a way that I hadn't gotten it before. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, they're just trying to make me
You're
feel
like,
better.
crap, I wish I wouldn't have said that to me. Right? It's like,
You just don't know what you don't
you don't
know.
know.
But
Yes.
going through my own grief experience made all of the ways I had behaved in the past make total sense. Like, why do we ignore talking about someone's person, right? We do that because
Yes.
we think it will make them sad, and we think sadness is a problem.
But I feel like you're right. We do. We don't bring them up because we're worried that it's going to hurt them to talk about it. But I feel like that's not true. I do talk about them. Is
My
that bad?
experience was no, I
Oh,
love that
good.
you
Oh,
talk
good.
about
I'm
it. I
doing that.
mean,
Okay, good.
not everybody's going to respond in the same way, but
No, exactly.
for me, I loved it when people talked about Hugo. And we had worked together. We worked in the same company. So everybody, and he worked there for 20 years. I'd only been there for 10. So a lot of my coworkers had known him longer than I had, right? And
Oh,
so I loved it when they wanted to tell stories, because we think the person in grief is like, maybe they've forgotten. They look okay, so that must mean they're not thinking about them, and we don't want to remind them of their loss. But the truth is that it's usually always running in the background if it's
sure.
not at the forefront of our thinking. And so it's actually quite refreshing to know that we're not the only one who's thinking about the person.
Right. Yeah.
You feel very seen and very heard. But if we didn't think that emotions were problems to start with, we wouldn't say those weird things. We
Right.
wouldn't try to change people's emotions because we we would know, like, no, it's not a problem. And then we could shift from what I found to be most helpful, like shift from trying to change someone's emotions to just trying to be with them as they
Go through
experience
it.
those
Right.
emotions, right? And we're not trying to make it easier than it is. It's just like, yeah, this really sucks, and I love you, right?
And
And
it's
I'm
in
here
here.
for
I'm
you.
just sitting here. Just
Yeah,
in
but I'm
in
not
your
trying to
space.
change it. I'm not trying to pep you up. I was you ever seen that movie Inside Out?
Oh my God, I love that with the Disney movie.
Right, the Pixar movie.
It's
Yeah.
one of
So
my favorite. I cried through the whole thing.
I just had to rewatch it last weekend because I was thinking about the relevancy there. And there's this scene So there's Bing Bong, who's the little imaginary elephant character.
Yes.
And he
Trying to
was
remember.
Riley's imaginary friend, and he's kind of coming to terms with the fact that Riley's outgrowing him. She's growing up and she doesn't need him anymore. Right? I know.
Yes.
And then you've got two characters, right? So all of the characters in the movie are Riley's like emotional board of
Emotions,
directors. That's
right,
what I call
right.
them, right? So
Yes.
you've got joy and then sadness and then Bing Bong. And Bing Bong is starting to see Riley doesn't need him. And Joy comes along and she's like, it's okay. And she tries to make him laugh. She tries to like tickle him and
Yes,
like talk
yes.
him out of his sadness, right? And it doesn't work. It falls really flat. Nothing she tries is working. And then sadness comes along and she just like plops down next to him. And she's like, "Oh, that sounds sad. That must be really hard." And she's just with him in his
That's it.
sadness.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna cry.
And then
Yeah.
he cries his candy tears. And he's like, "Okay, I'm ready. I'm okay now." And Joy looks at sadness and she's like, "What did you do? Like, what just happened? How did that work?" And that's what, if we could do that with people in grief, right? We don't try to talk them out of it.
Because you can't.
No, and you're not supposed to, and
You're
it's
not
not a
supposed to,
problem. How they
right.
feel is not a problem. It is the natural response to loss. That's all grief is, right? It's just the natural response to loss. It's not a problem.
No. And it's
No.
interesting because so many people around me, they say this, they're like, well, someday she'll want to date again. Or one day she'll be okay to date. I'm like, maybe she'll want to date, but she's always going to miss her. It's never right. I mean, you're never going
Well, and
to.
even when you do date again,
You're still missing your husband.
you still, yeah, you can still be,
you can
missing
compartmentalize.
them and
right
and dating.
right.
Yeah, it's not
It
like
doesn't
they're
end. It
mutually
doesn't. It's
exclusive.
not like the
Not at all.
dating, the feelings for your husband end, and then no, it's
Totally.
still it's just different spaces in your. It's very.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's just so interesting to me. This whole, and you're so brave. I feel. Do people
Oh,
say that
thank
a lot that you're brave for doing this, or is that something stupid too? I don't even know. Like I think to myself all the time. I check myself. Like, am I saying something stupid? I don't know.
I think we're all brave, right?
I think
We're
everyone's
all
brave. We're just
all the things. We're
we're
all
all
the
the
things,
things.
and that's what makes us human, and that's what makes it all work, right?
If co-parenting during a pandemic taught us anything, it's that you need proof your kids are safe. With alcohol abuse on the rise, many co-parents are turning to the no-nonsense system committed to providing proof, protection, and peace of mind. Soberlink's alcohol monitoring system is the most convenient, reliable, and reasonable way for a parent to provide evidence that they are not drinking during parenting time. Soberlink's real-time alerts make it easy to negotiate with any party. Judges rest assured that the child is safe. Attorneys get court-admissible evidence of sobriety, and both parents have empowerment and peace of mind. Do divorce right and trust the experts in remote alcohol monitoring technology to keep your kids safe, happy, and well-adjusted. To download the guide, 5 non-negotiables for embracing a new normal that I developed with Soberlink, visit www.soberlink.com/DRR. So some other myths. So about the dating, do you think that that's a myth that people that are grieving don't want to date, or they do want to date? Is there a myth there? Is there?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's different for every person, but I
Yeah.
definitely, I see a lot of drama around dating and grief, right? We tend to judge ourselves a lot. It's like we set ourselves up in these places where we won't let ourselves win, where if we don't want to date, then we're doing grief wrong or there's something wrong with us. And if we do want to date, then we didn't love them enough and we're doing grief wrong and there's something wrong with us. And just none of that is useful or true. Right. Like I didn't want to date for several years, but that's not right or wrong or good or bad. That's just where I was. I saw dating again as like not something I wanted to hassle with. I just wasn't interested. For a while I was mad. I remember going out on I thought it was just dinner with a former coworker. And then I realized as we were out to dinner, oh, he thinks we're on a date. Right. And I remember going to my car afterwards and just sobbing in my car.
I can only imagine.
Just being like, I don't want to have to date. I was just so mad. Like I want Hugo. I want my old life back. I do not want to have to be here. And that was not for me a quick thing to work through. But for other people that, they're different people and maybe they're ready sooner and that's totally okay.
Did you feel pressure from people? Do you remember feeling pressure?
I don't, for some reason, I wasn't around people who were giving me
That's so
any
nice.
pressure to date,
I have
really.
friends that are really feeling a lot of pressure from like family members, like, get back out there. You'll feel better if you're just, I'm like, I don't, I don't understand. Makes me sad.
Yeah, and I don't know why I seem to escape that because a lot of people do have that pressure.
Yeah,
But
they
yeah,
do.
my friends and family just didn't really.
I'm
Nobody
so
ever
glad.
really tried to fix me up or put me in awkward positions. I did get
That's nice.
questions about, "Hey, are you thinking about it?" But I never really felt pressured.
Oh, good. That makes me happy. I'm glad. So tell me really quickly, well, not quickly, we have some time, about your podcast, which is
Yeah,
you have guests on that have lost people
sometimes.
sometimes,
Yeah,
and then you
yeah.
also have both,
Just whatever I can. Yeah,
everything.
it's called the Widowed Mom Podcast, and my goal is just to help widows through the
Yeah, that's
podcast, right?
amazing. That's
Like
amazing.
I have a coaching program, but I expect that, not everybody's going to coach, and that's okay. How can I help, right? How can I
Right.
support people? How can I make them think about grief differently, make them think about what's possible for them differently, and stop believing all of the lies that their brain offers them on a regular basis about who they are and what their future could look like, and all of that. And it's because it's not an easy walk, right? It's not an easy walk, and there just wasn't anything that supported me in that way. And so that's what I try to make the podcast. It's just something that anybody can listen to, and whether they ever work with me or not, it's helpful. And a lot of people, it's fascinating to me. I just think because there aren't a lot of grief resources out there that people are familiar with, a lot of people listen who aren't widows. And I get a lot of
I did.
feedback. Oh,
I cried.
good.
So I
Yeah.
cried.
Oh,
I don't know. It's very, I mean, it's just, it is amazing that because there's nothing out there. Like there
yeah.
really, there's a lot of books on like what to do if, and for your kids and how to,
Hmm.
I just think that for you, like for our person, like
Yeah,
everyone needs help, like it's just something you don't know until you go through it. You just don't
totally.
know.
Yeah, and a
You
lot of
can't
what you end
explain
up
it to
finding
someone.
out there is kind of when you do find spaces that people understand the experience, sometimes it can turn into pity parties. So,
Oh,
yes, you feel heard and you feel validated that, it's hard, but then also you feel limited because you don't see a lot of examples of women who are saying, "Yes, it's hard and I'm not going to let this
and
define me and I'm
right,
not going to stop here," right? And then taking that and rising up to it.
right. I
Yeah.
feel like that with divorce, like I was trying to find my people and all my married friends wanted to help, but they didn't understand because they didn't go through it. They had no idea
Yeah.
how I felt. So
Mhm.
I kind of feel like maybe that's your space too. Like unless you go through losing your husband, unless you go through loss like that, how can you can't no one can understand it, right? I
That
could never understand
That's
how you
totally
feel.
how it felt. At 40, I
Yeah.
didn't know anybody who had been widowed at
No,
that age.
no.
Yeah. But
So
also,
young.
I had a similar experience with divorce. I mean,
Yeah, me
before
too.
then,
That's
nobody
what I was
really
just gonna
wanted to talk
say.
about it. So,
Right,
yeah,
right. It's just very interesting, the whole thing. It's just so, but you have a free course right now.
I
Do you want to talk about
do.
that? Let's
Yeah, I
talk about
just
that.
created
I think
it.
it's so cool.
I've just been kind of thinking because sometimes it'll strike me where this is what I do all day long.
Yeah,
I think about grief, talk about grief, read about grief, like coach on grief. It is the world that I live in. And so I kind of take for granted that some of the things that I know, but other people don't. And so I just decided, I want to create a free course that will help people just get some
it's
of the
awesome.
basics down. Because especially if A, we live in a culture that doesn't understand grief, B, we live in a culture that thinks feelings are problems, right? And also grief fog. I call it widow fog because I work with widows, but grief fog is no joke for
What
some
is that?
people. Grief fog is just this experience where your cognitive processing is limited. So you already only have, a certain bandwidth that your highest brain can process information at one time. And in grief, when your hormones are out of whack and you're not sleeping well and just your whole everything is off, sometimes you won't be able to remember like you used to remember. You won't be able to process like you used to process. It's like it feels like cotton candy is in your brain. Like
Right,
I would remember, I never forgot things. So detail oriented, right? I would go to read something, I have to read the same paragraph over and
right.
over and over because it wouldn't sink in. It was so frustrating to me when I really wanted to learn about grief, but nothing was
Yeah, it
sinking
wasn't
in. Or
sticking. You're like,
you would do the weirdest things, like you would put your keys in the pantry, or
I mean, well, I mean, but you got to
it's
think to yourself, like, of course I mean, you were in
your
this
whole
place where
system's
like,
just
holy,
overloaded.
right, right.
Nothing
How
is
long?
normal.
No, and it lasts obviously for you could be whatever. If someone else,
You just don't
depends on the
know.
person. You just don't
You
know.
just don't know. But so I just decided, people are in this place where they need this information. How can I do something that's, fairly short and give them some powerful information that will really help them so that they don't have to read all the books that I read and struggle in all the ways that I struggled. And so, yeah, I just created a free course that people can get on my website just
And it's
to
nice
help
because
them.
it's quick, right? And it's like, they can
Yeah, it's like
actually read it.
75 minutes, and it's
Oh,
just
that's
I
nice.
just kind of walk people through the common myths of grief and, what you really want to expect and where people get stuck and those kinds of
Wow.
things. Yeah.
And you know what? It might be good for people who maybe didn't lose the person, but someone like me who,
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying?
You
It's a good resource for
you
me,
want some
someone like me.
compassion for what
Yes.
somebody else you care about is going through and how you can support them.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna actually go check that out because I also get it's really crazy. I also try to explain to my other people, like let's say we lose, we all lose a family member, my sister, my whoever. I'm just saying, God forbid, but we all handle dealing with grief differently.
Sure.
To the same, like I may, rush over to the house and do the laundry and help with whatever and
Yep.
and someone else might like not want to be there at
No.
all. So then we start fighting over who's doing the right thing. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Oh, totally makes sense. You know how much coaching I do on
Oh, really? Do you? So like,
Oh
I
my
don't
gosh.
know, like, and then I'm like, well, why didn't you need to be here and you need to show, and who
Mhm.
goes to the funeral? We always like, well,
Mm.
which, we play the game like, it's the craziest thing that we do.
Mhm.
Because do you think it's like a defense mechanism? Do you think we just don't know? I don't
Yeah,
know why
well,
we're so
here's
crazy. Why are
here's
we
a
so
large part of
crazy?
it. It truly is like almost all these issues boil down. They're either feelings issues or they're thoughts issues,
Yeah,
right? So it's like if we think feelings are problems and we see somebody sad, then what do? We
we
want to
want to
go
fix it.
solve all their
I
stuff and
want to
like,
fix it. I do.
yeah, some of us jump in that way. But yeah, I do a lot of. It's fascinating to me how many relationship challenges widows have after loss that they did not experience before the loss,
Wow. Wow.
right? And it is because everybody is handling the loss differently,
Sure.
or sometimes because their spouse maybe was that buffer
Yeah.
in a relationship. And so, yeah, that can be a hugely challenging part of grief is how do you navigate all of everybody's opinions about what you're supposed to do with your life, everybody's opinions about how you're supposed to parent, and
Yeah.
how
Oh
long are
my
you
gosh.
supposed to wear the wedding ring, and when are you supposed to date again, and all that
There's
kind of
so much.
so many opinions.
And then you have to
So
think
many
of you're
opinions.
doing all this while you're grieving the loss of your husband.
Yeah. And your self-confidence oftentimes is in the toilet. And you were totally not prepared for that to happen.
Oh my
Right?
gosh.
Where you
Oh
I've
my
seen it
gosh.
so many times
Cannot
because
even.
you don't realize how much of your self-concept you got from your identity as a couple, right? Or how much your person believed in you or what you envisioned for your future, right? And you felt like you were confident and then all of a sudden you're not. You're like, wait a minute, I don't
Wow.
even know who I am. And I'm really believing that I don't know who I am, and I don't know what's possible for myself in the future. And oh, there's a lot.
I got to tell you, I don't think anyone that hasn't like me, for example, anyone who hasn't lost someone or doesn't understand what you're going through, I would never think about that. I would
Mhm.
never think to myself, she's going through X, Y, or Z, like the
Well, and I
deep
didn't
stuff that you're talking about.
either. Yeah, right. And I think that's why. But it's so surprising. You don't realize how anxious you might
Wow.
be. Like
Yeah, no.
there's just so many experiences that you're unprepared for, and then you don't have anybody in your world
Who gets it?
to help you or to understand or who's been there. And so yeah, it's just like it's like somebody drops you off in a foreign country that you didn't ask to go to, and you don't have a map and you don't speak the language, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, this is making me like, I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah, everyone needs to, I feel like you are an incredible asset for so many people. And I'm so surprised I haven't cried because I think I'm so interested in what you're saying. But I'm like, honestly, I'm so grateful for you. I'm going to cry now. I'm going
Well,
to cry.
thank you.
So your free course tells what it's called. It's called How to Navigate Grief.
Yeah,
And
it's designed for widowed moms, but I think it'd be good for anyone, right? It's like how to
I'm
navigate
going to go.
grief as a widowed mom. But yeah, if you want to learn more about grief or you're trying to support someone, by all means, go sign up for it and take it. There's nothing you can buy at the end of it. It's just a free course.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that so
You know.
kind of you too? It really
Well,
is. Where do you find that
thank you.
nowadays? Where you just like get a free course and no one, nothing attached to
Yeah,
it. Wow.
I know people are very skeptical on
Right?
Facebook a lot. I find this
Oh,
every. Well, how much does this free? How much does this podcast cost? No, it's free. Like it's
it's
always been
free.
free. It's free.
It's
But
I'm
yeah,
not
they just
charging
don't
you to listen to me. Right.
right. No, it's just there. It's a resource.
I
But
know. Isn't that interesting?
yeah.
It's interesting. I know. Okay. So before you go, because I don't want, so we have the Widow to Mom podcast. You do coaching one-on-one.
Actually, I only coach in groups now.
Oh, you coach. I want to do that
Only
too.
coaching groups.
I would like to get to coaching groups.
I got to the point where I realized I was fully booked as a one-on-one coach, and I was having the same repetitive conversations over and over.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I finally realized, you know what? So many of these women think that something is wrong with them, and there's nothing wrong with them.
Oh,
And
they need each other.
if I could just get them in a group so
That's
they
how
could
I
see,
feel with my
yeah, this
coaching.
is just grief. This is just like humanness, and then we could make progress faster. And so I never
I think
looked
that's
back.
yeah, because they also need each other, right? That's how I feel about the dating. It's a little different, but they're all like, they all hate dating. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't do. I'm so frustrated. If they had each other to bounce stuff off of, I think the groups would be amazing.
Yeah, and lifelong connections that are just really.
Yeah, they have
precious to
each other
watch.
forever. That's so true, right? Oh my gosh. Okay, so before I forget, the Moms Go On program. That's
Mom Goes On.
different.
Mhm.
Mom Goes On.
Yeah,
is
Mom
different.
Goes On is my coaching program.
That is your
So
coaching.
it's the
Okay.
6-month, group coaching program that I
Okay,
run.
gotcha. So
Yeah.
all of this is going to be in the show notes, Krista. So nobody gets all this messed up. But the easiest way to find you is
Probably
Coaching with Krista?
coachingwithkrista.com. Yeah, you can get the free course there. You can listen to my podcast there. You can learn all about Mom Goes On there.
Okay.
All the
So
socials there.
all the socials. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question and put you on the spot for one question. So one for me. This is for me. So if you lose someone, not me personally, but if a good friend of yours loses someone,
Yeah.
what do you suggest in your opinion? Like, what would I say? What is the best thing to say? Like, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry. I always say I'm sorry for your loss, and I don't know. I would love to know what you would tell a person to say.
I don't think there's a like a right or a wrong, right? I really don't.
Okay.
So, but if you don't believe feelings are problems, right? And you love the person, then all you have to do is just be honest. Like, I'm so sorry this happened and I love you so much, right? I'm here for you. And that it doesn't have to be anything more than that.
Okay.
Right? That's the
I like
sentiment
that.
though, is
That's
not
good.
trying to minimize, not trying, like you said, toxic positivity, trying to make them feel better. We don't need to be joy. We're just like
Please.
there to witness their human experience. And grief is just a natural response to loss. Nothing has
Oh,
gone wrong, even though it feels like the whole world just exploded.
okay, that's great. I love that. That's great advice. So everybody, follow Krista St-Germain, please. And you can. Are you on Instagram too?
I am Life Coach Krista.
I follow you, don't I? Do we follow each other?
I don't know.
We need to make that happen. We need to make that happen. I don't know. I'm
Who
the worst.
knows?
I don't know. I'm like, whatever. But anyway, so you can find Krista at Coaching with Krista. I appreciate you so much. I really
Thank
do.
you. Thanks
And
for the opportunity to come and talk about grief. Nobody really
and
wants to talk about that. So thank you
I would
for
talk about it
wanting
all
to
day
talk about it.
because normally I get nervous and I laugh. Is
Yeah.
that the worst? I'm the worst. My mom and my sister and I were the worst. We get so nervous and we're at funerals and we're like, I'm like, Mom, we have to. I don't know what it is. I think we're just weird humans. I think all of us are just weird.
You know what? We're all just doing the best we can with what we know. That's
I think
it.
I'm
We're
just
all doing the
horrified.
best we can.
I think I'm horrified of death in general. And I'm just scared. I haven't lost anybody. So I'm so scared.
And that's the other thing too, is like, we got to cut ourselves some slack, because if it's your worst fear that somebody
It is
you
mine.
love is going to die, then of course somebody else's life experience is going to show you your own worst fear. Like, let's be nice to ourselves about that.
Yes. I have one more question before you go. Do you mind
No.
if I ask you one more?
Here for it.
Is there a difference you see in your clients, or your moms or whoever, a difference between, I'm sure there is, when you lose someone suddenly and you lose someone that you're able to say goodbye to? Is the grief stronger? Is it different? Is it, in your opinion? I know that's what you do for a living. So I always wonder that. I always think to myself,
Well, no, I wouldn't say that it's easier or harder, right? It's based on how you choose to think about it after
okay,
it's over. So sometimes people will tell themselves, well, I was in a caregiving role and therefore I had to watch it and it drug out and it was awful. And so it was harder for me. And then sometimes they will tell themselves, well, at least I saw it coming and I got to say goodbye. And so in those ways, it was easier for me. And then right. So then for me, in a sudden loss, I could tell myself that it was harder because I didn't see it coming. Or I could tell myself that, I didn't have to go on for years and years watching,
right. I see what
like
you're
some
saying.
of my clients who have been cancer, caregivers for, their spouses with cancer, or, early Alzheimer's, dementia, like, really long ALS, goodness, some of the long drawn out ones. So I don't think it's better or worse or harder
This is
or
different.
easier. It's just different and it's just hard.
Wow. That is a great, yeah, see? Absolutely. That makes total sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, Krista, I think you're amazing. Thank you. Thank you for being patient with me.
Oh my, thank you for having me.
This
You're
is like
such
the
a
best for
sweetheart.
me because now I feel like it's hard because who do you ask, right?
Yeah,
Who do you
totally.
ask?
Yeah. Well, if
And
you
when
ever
you're,
want to ask me, I'm here.
I'm going to call you because when you ask people when you're going through it, when someone loses someone, you ask people who haven't, around you, maybe they
Yeah.
haven't lost someone. You don't know. It's just the whole
Like,
thing.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I
Yeah.
don't know. We go here, we get the flowers, we go to Shiva. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh God, I
Yeah.
just,
But you know what? We're never going to do it perfectly. We just got to know that
get rid
going
of
in. Like, we're
yeah,
just going to do the best job we can with what we know. And we'll probably look back and wish we'd done it differently. And that's okay because that's just how humans roll.
right. Okay. Well, thank you, Krista. I
You're welcome.
appreciate you. Okay, honey. Well, everyone follow Krista and thank you. I don't know. Everyone, you know where to find me, jenniferhurwitz.com. And I don't know. I love you guys, everybody. Thank you for listening and do something fabulous for yourself today and be kind and empathetic. And I don't know. Krista, thank you. I appreciate you. Everybody,
My
peace, love,
pleasure.
and so much truth. Take care, guys.